This story is purely a work of fiction. Any resemblance to actual events, places, or people, including the character of Elon Musk, is entirely coincidental and intended for entertainment purposes only. The narrative is crafted to explore a fictional scenario and should not be interpreted as a reflection of real-life actions or intentions. Stay to the end, understand what this top government classified document is all about and how it will benefit the intruder in his research work. This is really mind-blowing. The night was quiet around the White House. The big building stood tall under the dark sky. Everything felt calm, like the world was asleep. The trees barely moved and the grass was still. It was peaceful. But not far from the White House, something floated in the shadows. Small security drones moved quietly through the air. They glided back and forth, almost invisible in the dark. Tiny red lights blinked on each drone as they checked the area. These drones were there to keep the White House safe. They watched everything, all the time. Inside the White House, there was a special room where guards worked to protect the building. The room was dark, but many screens glowed, showing videos from the cameras outside. The guards sat at their desks, watching closely. Most nights, nothing happened. Sometimes they saw a raccoon run across the grass or a bird fly past the camera. But the guards had to stay awake and ready, just in case. One guard leaned back in his chair and took a sip of his coffee. The warm drink helped him stay awake. Another guard pressed some buttons to change the camera views. The screen showed the same places as always: the north entrance, the west wing, the long hallways, and the empty rooms. It was quiet, just like every other night. Suddenly, one of the screens blinked. A red light appeared in the corner, and a soft beep filled the room. The guard sat up straight. One of the motion detectors had gone off. It could be a mistake, maybe a bug or the wind. But they couldn't ignore it. They had to check. The quiet night didn't feel so peaceful anymore. Something was happening. The camera zoomed in on the west wing, where the alarm had gone off. The guards stared at the screen. At first, nothing moved. The hallway was long, with shiny white marble floors and tall windows. Everything looked still and quiet. Then something shifted. A dark figure slipped across the hallway, moving quickly and quietly. The person stayed close to the walls, avoiding the light. The guards leaned closer to the screen. This wasn't normal. No one was supposed to be there. One guard pressed a button, sending a signal to the security drones outside. The quiet hum of the drones grew louder as they floated closer to the building. Their cameras zoomed in on the west wing, watching carefully. The person inside kept moving, unaware they were being watched. An alarm silently alerted the Secret Service. Help was on the way. The intruder reached a heavy metal door at the end of the hallway. A small red light blinked on the keypad next to the door. The figure pulled out a small device, pressed a few buttons, and the red light turned green with a soft click. The door slid open quietly, and the intruder slipped inside. The room beyond the door was a high-security lab. It was quiet except for the soft hum of machines. The walls were lined with computers and strange equipment, each glowing with tiny lights. The intruder moved quickly, weaving between the machines. Eyes scanned the room, searching for something. In the middle of the lab stood a large glass case. Inside the case was a sleek, black device, no bigger than a shoebox. Wires connected it to a computer, and lines of code flashed across the screen. The intruder stepped closer, pulling out a small tool. Carefully, they pressed it against the lock on the glass case. The tool beeped softly and the lock clicked open. Lifting the glass cover, the intruder reached for the device. Fingers hovered for a moment before carefully picking it up. The surface was smooth and cold. From a pocket, the intruder pulled out a small cable and plugged it into the device. The other end connected to a handheld tablet. Data started transferring, flashing numbers and symbols across the screen. Suddenly, a loud alarm blared through the lab. Red lights flashed on the walls, making everything glow red for a moment, then dark again, over and over. The intruder froze. The soft hum of the machines was drowned out by the deafening siren. In the distance, hurried footsteps echoed down the halls. Someone was coming. Heart racing, the intruder shoved the device into a small backpack and sprinted toward the nearest exit. The chase had begun. The intruder ran through the lab, breathing hard, eyes darting around for a way out. Machines and computers flashed past in a blur. Red lights kept pulsing, making the shadows jump and dance across the walls. Suddenly, the door burst open. Armed security officers rushed in, their voices sharp and commanding. One shouted for the intruder to stop and put their hands in the air. The intruder skidded to a halt, eyes darting left and right, looking for another way out. There was none. Slowly, the figure raised both hands, fingers trembling slightly. The officers moved in quickly. One grabbed the intruder's arm while another pulled back the dark hood that had hidden the person's face. The secret was out. Gasps filled the room. The security team looked at each other in shock. The man they had just caught in one of the most secure rooms in the White House was Elon Musk. For a moment, no one spoke. The only sounds were the loud siren and the heavy breathing of the guards. One officer slowly lowered his weapon, staring in disbelief. He asked what Musk was doing there. Musk stood still, his face calm but serious. He looked around the room, then back at the guards. He quietly said that he could explain, but the guards weren't taking any chances. They quickly secured his hands behind his back and led him out of the lab. As they walked through the White House halls, red lights flashing, the officers whispered to each other, trying to make sense of what had happened. The biggest question remained. What was Musk after? And why had he risked everything to break in? Outside, reporters crowded near the black iron fence, holding up microphones and speaking quickly into their cameras. Breaking news from the White House, they said. An intruder has been caught inside a high-security area. Sources say the suspect is now in custody. Rumors spread fast. Some believed it was a foreign spy trying to steal secrets. Others thought it was a scientist hacking government technology. Suddenly, the front doors of the White House swung open. Security agents marched out, forming a tight circle around someone in the middle. Cameras zoomed in, reporters shouting questions. Who is it? What happened inside? Inside a bright interrogation room, Musk sat at a metal table. His hands rested in front of him. Across from him, high-ranking officials stood, their faces stern. The room was silent except for the hum of the lights and the sound of papers shuffling. The officials demanded answers. Musk listened quietly, his face unreadable. When he finally spoke, his voice was calm, almost casual, like he wasn't in trouble at all. He explained that he had been at the White House earlier that day for a private meeting about technology and national security. During that meeting, he discovered a flaw in one of the government's advanced artificial intelligence systems, a flaw that could let hackers break into the network. He said he couldn't ignore it. Musk claimed he came back after hours to fix the problem himself, thinking there was no time to wait. He described how he got into the lab, found the device, and was moments away from solving the issue when the alarms went off. The officials exchanged skeptical glances. His story sounded hard to believe. They reminded him that sneaking into the White House, no matter the reason, was a serious crime. But Musk stayed calm. He insisted that protecting the system was more important than following the rules. Some officials began to wonder if Musk had been reckless or if he was actually trying to help. Musk admitted that sneaking in had been a mistake, but he believed he had no other choice. Yet deep down, the officials felt there was more to the story. Musk wasn't telling them everything. The investigation started right away. A team of top security experts and government tech specialists worked through the night, digging into the system Musk claimed was flawed. The high-security lab, once sealed off, now buzzed with activity. Computer screens glowed, showing lines of code and endless streams of data. Everyone searched for answers, but the truth was still out of reach. In the middle of the room, the sleek black device Musk had interacted with sat on a metal table. Investigators carefully examined every part of it, tracing Musk's digital footprints to see exactly what he had done. At first, they found nothing unusual. The system seemed as secure as ever, its defenses airtight, just as they'd always believed. But then, one of the analysts, a young programmer named Patel, frowned at his screen. "Wait, what is this?" he muttered, leaning closer. His fingers flew across the keyboard, pulling up hidden lines of code buried deep in the system. I think I found something." The others gathered around as Patel highlighted the code. There it was, a tiny backdoor, almost invisible, buried under layers of security protocols. It was so subtle that it had slipped past every inspection before. The backdoor allowed a skilled hacker to bypass security and access highly classified information without setting off any alarms. Patel's supervisor stepped forward, eyes narrowing at the screen. "Run a simulation. Let's see what happens if someone tries to exploit it." Patel nodded and ran the test. Within seconds, the system cracked wide open. The investigators watched in disbelief as the simulation revealed how easily someone with the right knowledge could take control. Classified files flickered across the screen, vulnerable and exposed. The room grew tense. One of the senior agents rubbed his face, struggling to process what he was seeing. The test confirmed there was indeed a backdoor in the system, but something felt off. As they dug deeper, unsettling details emerged. Word spread quickly, and soon the chief of staff arrived at the lab, followed closely by the head of security. They demanded answers. Patel, his expression troubled, explained what they had found. The backdoor existed, but its complexity raised questions. The coding style didn't match anything in the government's existing systems. It was too new, too sophisticated. It appeared as though the vulnerability had been created intentionally, and the timing was suspicious. As the investigation continued, they uncovered more inconsistencies. Musk had claimed he was trying to fix a system, but the data told a different story. The team discovered traces of code that suggested someone had been attempting to extract sensitive information. The system logs showed commands issued from the device Musk had connected. These commands weren't aimed at patching anything. They were probing deeper, reaching for classified files. The atmosphere grew heavier. Musk's actions weren't adding up. Instead of preventing a cyber attack, it seemed more likely he had been using the backdoor to gain access himself. The closer they looked, the clearer it became. He hadn't been moments away from sealing the flaw. He had been moments away from downloading something. As Patel pieced together the evidence, the truth began to take shape. Musk hadn't broken in to help. He had known about the backdoor because he, or someone working with him, had created it. Whether his intentions were personal or part of a larger plan remained unclear. But the signs all pointed to one conclusion. Musk's story had been a cover. The chief of staff stood quietly for a long moment, staring at the blinking lights of the machines. The weight of the discovery hung in the air. Musk wasn't the hero they thought. He was the reason the system had been at risk in the first place. The White House's most advanced security system had been compromised, and the man they had arrested wasn't there to save it. He was the one they needed protection from. In the quiet depths of the White House, the investigation stretched into the early hours of the morning. A team of top security analysts combed through every detail of the high-security lab and the device he had interacted with. What began as a simple inquiry into his actions soon turned into a meticulous unraveling of something far more sinister. The experts worked, streams of code and complex digital pathways. At first, everything seemed to align with his claims. The system had been accessed, but no immediate damage was apparent. It appeared that he had merely attempted to close a vulnerability. But as they dug deeper, subtle anomalies began to emerge. One analyst noticed it first, a faint signature buried in the code, almost invisible. It didn't match any known government encryption and seemed deliberately placed. Tracing the digital fingerprint led to a hidden command embedded deep in the system, something that shouldn't have been there. The team paused, exchanging uneasy glances. Hours passed before the truth finally surfaced. Musk had done more than just tamper with the system. He had planted a discrete data siphon designed to extract classified information. Every keystroke revealed another layer to his plan. The investigators pieced together the puzzle, realizing that Musk's presence in the White House lab wasn't about fixing a security flaw. It was a carefully orchestrated mission to gain access to top-secret American intelligence, knowledge that could fuel his personal research and projects for years to come. The backdoor he claimed to have found was nothing more than a decoy, a clever distraction to mask his true intentions. The chief of staff was alerted immediately. The mood in the meeting room grew colder as the new evidence was laid out before the officials. They listened in silence as the lead investigator explained the discovery, his voice heavy with disbelief. Musk had carefully engineered the entire situation, creating a narrative of heroism while quietly slipping into the nation's most sensitive digital vaults. When confronted, he maintained a calm demeanor. He didn't deny the findings, but instead presented a different perspective. He revealed that the technology within the White House held untapped potential, far beyond what the government had realized. In his eyes, accessing the information wasn't theft, but a necessary step to advance humanity. He believed that such knowledge shouldn't be confined behind locked doors, but used to push the boundaries of exploration and innovation. Officials exchanged uneasy glances. His justification didn't sit well with them. His actions weren't driven by noble intentions, but by a personal quest for power over information. The idea that one man could unilaterally decide what classified knowledge should be used for was unsettling. The chief of staff ordered his immediate removal from the White House and notified intelligence agencies to begin a full investigation into his activities. He was escorted out, his once confident stride replaced by a slow, measured walk under the watchful eyes of security. The White House tightened its security protocols in the days that followed. His actions served as a great reminder that even the most trusted innovators could harbor hidden agendas.